Namaste and greetings. I, Shweta Shankar, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI, #Web Policy Learning. Today, we are gathered here for day one of LPPYF 2.0 cohort. As we embark on this journey of learning and engagement, let us pause to acknowledge the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, observed annually on November 25th. This day serves as a stark reminder of the pervasiveness of gender-based violence, a global pandemic that shatters lives and impedes progress. With this background, LPPYF 2.0 is a program that is primarily designed to empower young minds to become the torchbearers of fields like human rights and gender equality. This fellowship is a testament to IMPRI's collective belief in the transformative power of young leaders who hold the key to shaping a more just and equitable society. Through this immersive program, you will delve into the diverse facets of gender equality, environmental justice, and refugee rights, equipping yourselves with the knowledge and skills to become agents of change. Over the next 4 weeks, you will engage in stimulating discussions, collaborate with like-minded individuals, and learn from experts sharing their experiences. This fellowship will not only enrich your intellectual understanding, but also ignite your passion for social justice. A unique aspect of this fellowship is the emphasis on creative expression. We believe that art has the power to transcend boundaries, evoke emotions, and amplify the voices of the marginalized. Throughout the program, you will have the opportunity to showcase your creativity through various mediums, such as poetry, music, painting, or any form of artistic expressions that resonates with you. These creative endeavors will not only serve as personal outlet for self-expression, but also as a powerful tool for advocacy and social change. This online fellowship comprises 3 special lecture sessions by distinguished experts, 5 technical lecture sessions conducted by subject matter experts, 4 hands-on training sessions by a legal practitioner for public policy capacity development, and 6 program sessions of short intervals interspersed throughout the program's tenure. Additionally, as part of this fellowship, IMPRI, in recognition of exceptional contribution, will present an award to honor the most outstanding and impactful presentation during the fellowship. The criteria for judgment for Best Presenter is creativity and impact. We invite all participants to seize this rewarding opportunity by submitting an abstract outlining their chosen research topic related to human rights. The abstract should include your idea for the chapter and in which form you choose to present it. Whether you are planning to write a slogan, create a short film, or express your research in a unique way, we encourage you to share your innovative ideas with us. The chair for the program is Professor Vibhuti Patel, visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI, and the fellowship lead advisor and expert legal hands-on session is Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, visiting senior fellow IMPRI. The distinguished experts include Advocate Dr. Flavia Agnes, women's rights lawyer and co-founder of Majlis Legal Center based in Mumbai, Professor Dr. Sina Paul, a professor at Department of Economics and MD Shah College for Women based in Mumbai, Advocate Dr. Albertina Almeida, lawyer and human rights activist based in Goa, Dr. Kirti Bolineni, President, Vasavya Mahila Mandali based in Vijayawada, Dr. Wahida Nayanar, an independent researcher, gender and human rights consultant, Dr. Aksa Sheikh, Associate Professor, Community Medicine, Hamdard Institute of Medical Sciences and Research, New Delhi, Ms. Elsa Mary D. Silva, founder of Red Dot Foundation India and president of Red Dot Foundation based in USA. The conveners for this course are Dr. Simi Mehta, CEO and editorial director at IMPRI, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, visiting senior fellow IMPRI, and Dr. Arjun Kumar, director at IMPRI. Welcome everyone to this insightful discussion, and I appreciate your dedication in investing your energy, time, and commitment to gain a profound understanding of the crucial role and intricacies of legal and public policy frameworks. This program aims to empower participants with the ability to grasp the nuances and complexities of legal and public policy paradigm, offering both theoretical insights and practical skills for research. Session of day 1 include the topics: Introduction, Human Rights and Ending Gender-Based Violence by Professor Vibhuti Patel, The Impact of Law and Reform on Gender Rights by Dr. Flavia Agnes, Women's Movement in India, Historical Evolution and Achievements by Professor Vibhuti Patel, Participants and a program discussion, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam. I invite Professor Vibhuti Patel for her opening chair remarks.
Thank you very much, Shweta, for the welcome address. And I would like to now, first of all, thank Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, and whole IMPRI team for this Law and Public Policy Youth Fellowship Program, Cohort 2, in which the major theme is promoting human rights and ending gender-based violence. And it's going to be a very long, detailed sessions. Good evening, esteemed resource persons, Advocate Flavia, Agnes, Dr. Shalu Nigam, who will be starting today's course. And dear participants, for this course, we have galaxy of resource persons, as Shweta told us, who have dedicated best years of their lives to combat gender-based violence through their intervention, research, writings, and providing institutional support to survivors of violence and ensuring their developmental needs that leads to their empowerment as citizens. Today, on International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women, which is 25th of November every year, and since 1993, women's movement all over the world has been organizing campaigns from 25th November to 10th December, International Human Rights Day, to focus on gender-based violence, its nature, its intensity, and the strategies to fight against it and come up with reorganization of gender relations based on mutual respect and peaceful coexistence. Everyone accepts, and especially in the post-pandemic period, that gender-based violence is an ongoing emergency in its own right. We had a health emergency, we have overcome that, but still the gender-based violence has still remained a very, very mind-boggling issue, with so many new forms of violence. For example, massive trafficking of women and children, forced child labor, forced prostitution, forced marriages, not getting right to education. So many girls are forced out of education system. So systemic and structural violence, at the same time, increased violence against young people, nature and intensity of the violence also have become very, very complex, added with the whole cyber technology. The right of women and children to live free of violence depends on the protection of the human rights and strong support structures dedicated to gender justice. Countries that enact and enforce laws on violence against women have less gender-based violence. Today, 160 countries have laws to address violence against women. However, in too many cases, enforcement is lacking. That is, I think, even Advocate Flavia, Agnes and Advocate Shalu Nigam also will give you so many examples of that. Systems and structures that valorize and perpetuate violence against women and girls and against the sexual, religious, or ethnic minorities need to be challenged, need to be reformed. As we are seeing currently, even at a major level, the traditional wars are being fought and the scores are settled on women's bodies, whether it is Ukraine and Russia, the war between Ukraine and Russia, and the recent one, the mind-boggling and extremely heartbreaking pictures of violence that we are seeing in the Israel and Palestine conflict. According to the United Nations, and I quote, "Violence against women and girls remains one of the most prevalent and pervasive human rights violations in the world, Globally, an estimated 736 million women, that means nearly 74 crore women, almost 1 in 3, have been subjected to physical or sexual or intimate partner violence, non-partner sexual violence, and or both at least once in their life, quote complete. In post-pandemic period, gender-based violence in the domestic arena, in the public places, and in the conflict situation have taken ghastly shape. This menace has intensified in different spaces, such as workplace and online digital world, trafficking of women and girls in the modern forms of slavery. It's a topic by itself, and in wars between in various places on this planet. It is our duty to build robust public opinion to stop violence in the coming weeks. We have 15 days of campaign, and on the International Human Rights Day, that means on 10th December 2023, to make the global community, both state and non-state actors, to commit themselves for establishing peace in all spheres of life. What we see is currently the political will to combat violence is also lacking. And what we see is that even when it comes to the budgetary allocation, which determines funds, functions, and functionaries to combat violence against women, it is less than even 5% of the GDP. And for actual prevention of gender-based violence, the budgetary allocation is less than zero. It is just 0.2%. That is less than even 1%. That itself shows how seriously we are taking this issue. And I think it is our duty. And that is why this course is also aimed at serious debate to build not only the discussion, but also build a strong campaign and advocacy and for creating a better world. And we start with the presentation by veteran feminist and the champion of women's rights who has done massive ground level work, Advocate Flavia Agnes. Now over to IMPRI.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Moving on, I invite Advocate Dr. Flavia Agnes to start the session on the impact of law reform on gender rights. Advocate Dr. Flavia Agnes is a women's rights lawyer and co-founder of Majlis Legal Center based in Mumbai. Welcome, ma'am, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Vibhuti. And I congratulate IMPRI for having this session. I think it's a very important one. And it's starting today on 25th November, which is celebrated as marked as a Violence Against Women fortnight all over the world. And the UN has declared it as such. And it culminates on the Human Rights Day, which is December 10th. And thank you very much for having me for this inaugural lecture. I'm highly honored by this. And thank you so much for having given me the space to speak. I'll speak for about next half an hour, and then we can have questions if you have, and move on from there. So let me just say today, I'm part of the women's movement since the 1980s when the movement started, and it started as an anti-rape movement. One second. I'm clear? Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. I cannot see myself, so I was wondering. Oh, you can see me clearly, no?
Yes, ma'am. Everything's clear.
Yeah, okay. So it started in 1980 and started as an anti-rape movement. And then quickly moved on to a movement against oppression of women, more generally. So what are the issues that were taken up? Is rape, dowry death, domestic violence, trafficking, sexual harassment, obscenity, trafficking, all these issues one by one were taken up by the movement since the 1980s. Here I'm a lawyer and I'm founder of Majlis based in Mumbai. So for me, the law becomes a very important aspect of a tool for gender transformation and to curb violence against women. So the women's movement has concentrated from the beginning about law reform. So there was a belief in the 80s that if you have better laws, you will get better gender justice. So the whole campaign was to bring in law reform And if you see the decade from 80 to 90, always the campaign has focused on better laws. And we have succeeded also. So we got 1983 rape law reform, and a new law was implemented, which the main aspect of it was mandatory minimum punishment, 7 years for any ordinary rape, and 10 years for aggravated rape, which means rape of minors, rape of pregnant women, gang rape, etc., and a lot of other things. Gruesome rape and murder, all these were considered as aggravated situations. And this was considered as a major victory because the criminal law, rape law had remained unchanged for over 100 years from the time it was formulated. So the fact that women's movement can campaign and the fact that women's movement can demand change in rape law and bring in about reform was a major sense of victory for the movement. Around that time, there was also a lot of violence, what was then called as dowry debt or dowry-related violence. Young married women were subjected to torture, harassment, and even a death. Murder, suicide, all this was happening. And this also became a very big campaign issue. So it was rape and dowry debt. These were the coinage at the time. So accordingly, there was demand for change in the laws concerning domestic violence. I would frame it today, but that time we used to frame it as dowry debt and dowry violence. So criminal law was amended in 1984. IPC was amended in 1984 and 1986. And not just death, but also abetment to murder, abetment to suicide was also made into an offense. So if a woman died within 7 years of her marriage, through some not natural cause, but unnatural situations, then their presumption would be on the husband and his family that they didn't do it. This is a big change, major change, that change of burden of proof upon the accused is a very big change in the criminal law. Usually it is the prosecution which has to prove the offense. But here the burden was shifted because these crimes used to happen in the husband's home, matrimonial home, and the woman would have no evidence, her family would have no evidence. And it was very difficult for the prosecution to prove the offense. So in this context, the demand was made that burden should shift and the onus should be on the husband and his family to prove that they didn't do it, rather than on the prosecution to prove that they did it. So this is a very major change in the criminal law. So 1984 and 1986, we got these two laws, criminal law changed. 304B was added. If a woman died within 7 years of her marriage under unnatural circumstances, then there would be a presumption that the husband family was cause for this. And 1986, we got, this is 1984, we got the 498A, cruelty to wives. And 1986, we got 304B, which is 7 years within marriage if a woman dies, etc. So these two were major changes in the law. And thereafter, we got law on obscenity, trafficking in women, all the other issues of harassment that were bogging us down, and we got laws for each of them. Now, having said this, and now it is from 1983, it's now nearly 40 years since we have moved on. So I want to know, what is the impact of this? What impact it has had? Has it changed the situation? And how women have benefited? Now here we realize over the years that plain changing of the laws is not sufficient. We need to see its execution, implementation at the ground level, and there has to be a lot of other infrastructural institutions that are in place to get women justice, which were not there. So there was a feeling that if the law gets reformed, automatically justice will happen. But over the years, there was a realization that automatically justice does not happen, You have to work very hard to make it happen. So there has to be a lot of elements of criminal law in place, including evidence. The law of evidence has to be there. There has to be sufficient proof that what is required to prove an offense has to be there, and there has to be supportive documents, etc. So now with all this, what you see at the end of it, whether it is rape or whether it is domestic violence or dowry death, conviction rates were very, very low, including for rape. Though the mandatory minimum punishment, etc., was there, but even then, nobody would believe the woman when she says, I've been raped. And even the prosecution would not believe who's supposed to represent her. And of course, even the judiciary will not believe her unless she's a very young minor girl who has been brutally gang raped and there are marks of injury on her body. Otherwise, it would be presumed that she's telling lies. This didn't happen to her. So this is a general trend. If you see the judgments over the period which I have studied, you will see a lot of disparative comments about the woman, her character, her past history, whether she is divorced, whether she is, what kind of a woman she is, what kind of character she has. All this comes into discourse into the trial, which is unnecessary, not necessary at all to prove the offense. But general attitude towards women continues within the judiciary, very disparaging comments that are being made about her character. And then there were several Supreme Court judgments which have said that woman's past history or her character should not be an issue and it should not be used in the trial. Even so, the judges, trial court judges, do not take this seriously. They allow the defense lawyers to examine the witness in a very negative manner, attacking a character, moral character, and humiliating her during the trial. And because of it, she's not able to give a proper evidence in her favor, and the case is lost. So this is the situation into which we are grappling. The same is happening with the dowry death cases. Unable to prove, because here different problems arises. Problem being that while she is undergoing a lot of torture and harassment, her natal family doesn't want to foreground this issue. They want to preserve the marriage. They will hide this violence and also succumb to all the demands from the husband side for dowry, for more money, whatever else is required, etc. And they do not file a police complaint before she actually dies. After she dies, the entire story changes. And they said there was a demand for dowry. There was a lot of pressure on her. And she used to come and ask for money, etc. But nobody's going to believe her because there is no past history that is adding up to the history of domestic violence. The picture that is painted is that it's a good marriage, it's a happy marriage, and suddenly she dies and the whole story changes. So the judges do not believe her parents. They say they have made it up. She has committed suicide. Maybe she was depressed or whatever, and the husband family is not responsible. So even though it is supposed to be a stringent law, even though within 7 years she has died, sometimes she is pregnant, sometimes she has small children, etc., and yet she has chosen to commit suicide. And still the case cannot be proved at all because of the failure on the part of the natal family to record the history of the violence prior to her death. So this is the situation under which we are struggling today, and we need to look at a marriage itself in a different way. We need to encourage women who are complaining about domestic violence, to encourage them to leave that troublesome marriage and come out and lead their lives, maybe file for divorce, maybe be much more assertive, fight for their rights within the matrimonial home, fight for their property rights within the natal home. But all this mindset is not there. And the entire thing is this marriage must be saved. That is the be all and end all of women's life. And So never mind what the law changes that have come, but whether it has any influence at the ground level. So this is the challenge that we are facing. Even about rape, a lot depends upon who the rapist is. Now, if the rapist is somebody from the outside, the family will help you to file the case. But if the rapist is somebody from the house, whether the rapist happened within the home, whether the rapist is the father or the brother or a relative, then the family doesn't want you to file the case. They want to quash the matter and discourage the girl from approaching the police station. And this is allowed to continue. So we are looking at all the rapes are not same. We are looking at rape very differently as to who the accused person is and whether we are ready to take the case further or whether we want to hide this fact, whether we want to subsume this fact within the family honor. So the family honor becomes very important. So if it is a outsider, stranger, rape, then it is easy to say, that she has been raped. But if it is somebody, family member, known person, influential person in the community, etc., then you don't want to file the case. So while we say all rapes are same, all rapes are not same. Our treatment to the rapes are very different depending upon who the accused person is and what status he holds within the family or in the community. Now, these are some of the challenges that we have. Now we have, so I'll just like pause to drink water. If you have any questions about my presentation, please note them down. When I finish, you can raise them. So the advice I want to give is to take precautionary action, take timely action, and not keep everything to the last to say, we'll see at the end, we will see at the end, and we'll see whether this woman is able to sustain that marriage or whether she will give up. And then at the end, when she dies, then there is a whole campaign saying that this was a dowry death and they killed her or she committed suicide, etc. My advice is that you cannot do this. You have to build it into her from the beginning. Its whole socialization has to change. The girl has to be socialized into believing that her dignity has to be respected. She has to be valued within marriage. And if there is no dignity, if she is violated, then her natal family has to support her to gain her individuality and to take action immediately so that she is not driven to death. So while the law is in place, we are not able to use that law because of our own mindset and because of our own value system. So that has to change. And I hope this course will inculcate into you this strong message which we are having today on this violence against women day starting of your course as an inaugural lecture. I'm very happy to be delivering this lecture because these are important issues. For 40 years, we have been struggling with this. And yet, if you see, I don't want to say there are no changes. There are changes. Today, the judiciary, the courts, the police station, etc., are ready to accept that there is domestic violence. They're ready to accept there is a rape within the home by known person, by family members, etc. But that's not yet sufficient, and the mindsets are not changed. Some very few changes you can see, and overall we have a situation where girls and women feel trapped within the setup of community, family, or the social environment, and they find it very difficult to move ahead and file cases. Now, these are two important areas: sexual violence and domestic violence. But apart from that, there are other kind of violence, trafficking into women, which is on the increase. And there's a whole nexus between the police and the traffickers and the brothel keepers, etc. And a lot of poor rural women get ensnared into this. Sometimes the family also collaborates with them and they're ready to sell their own daughters into trafficking. And while there are groups, NGOs working, here that is not sufficient. And because it is starting with the poverty in the rural environment, where there are a lot of families are very poor and they feel that selling their daughters is their only option. So they are ready to sell their daughters into brothels, and where they are subjected to great torture, humiliation, violence, etc. And their earnings are taken away by the brothel keepers, and the girls are put in a cage-like or prison-like situation, and are made to perform sexual acts in a very indignified manner. And even their earnings, they cannot control, and it is taken away from them. So this is a very pathetic situation. We have laws. 1988, we got a change. After that, subsequently to 2006, we got again a change in the law. But all that does not add up to much. And so there are two views here. One is that all sex work is forced, and all women who are into it as trafficked women. But there's another thinking, or there's another group working, saying that this is sex work and women voluntarily come into sex work. What we need is protection of their rights and not just laws which will penalize them. So when there is no other choice to work, women use their bodies to earn a livelihood, and there's nothing wrong with it if it is their own wish, which is their consensual choice, in a situation of no choice. So these are the two ways into which NGOs have framed this. Some groups feel that it is choice. Others feel that choice is also not really free choice. It is forced upon them with a situation of no other alternatives or no other way in front of them to come out of their poverty, and they're humiliated like this. So this is another way of thinking. And I just want to tell you here that consensual sex, even commercial sex, is not an offense. It is trafficking that is an offense. So you cannot traffic and earn money from somebody else's or sex work. But if you're doing it on your own account, they cannot be arrested. But there is a confusion, and a lot of people are not able to understand the difference, and even the police are not able to understand. So women are subjected to a lot of harassment by the police, torture by the police, etc., unwarranted arrest, and a lot of harassment they face because they are lack of understanding whether it is a woman is trafficked or whether it is doing sex work out of her own free will and for her own economic needs. So this confusion has to be sorted out, and women who are doing it out of their own consent have to be empowered so that they are able to negotiate their rights. They are able to negotiate with the police. They are able to have control over their earnings. Their health issues are sorted out, and they get regular medical aid so that they don't contract venereal diseases. So all this needs to be there. And then the issue of trafficking is there, brothel keeping is there. So we need to look at brothel keeping as well as voluntary sex work into two different frames and cannot collapse them into a single frame. So this is what is about trafficking. And the police, in a way, earn a lot of money through harassing sex workers, brothel keepers, etc. And it becomes a very strong avenue of their income. So we need to be very cautious here. And what are we asking? What are we demanding? How it has to be implemented? How it has to be monitored? We need to have a greater, deeper understanding about this. So this is as far as trafficking of women and girls is concerned. Then there is other issue of obscenity, using women's bodies for obscene purposes, in the films, in the hoardings, in advertisement. You have a lot of ways in which women's bodies are used for commercial purposes. Again, here there are 2 points are there. One is they are being exploited. Another one is that they are doing it out of their own free will. So we need to understand here, where is the exploitation, how is the exploitation, and who earns from the women's bodies. But at the other level, if the women are choosing it, what are the situation under which they're choosing it, and how they are choosing, and whether it is an informed choice, whether it is a forced choice, and whether they have a situation of no choice where they are using their bodies to earn a livelihood. So these are some important concerns. As far as this obscenity law is concerned, it is in 1988 we had framed this law. We had amended this law and made it more stringent. After that, there has been a lot of debate on this, and say what is women's choice, what is obscene and what's not obscene, how do we decide what is obscene, and what are the guidelines that should be framed to control this or to eliminate this process. So these are some of the concerns that law changes have brought before us. And I want to stop here so that you can ask some questions and I can respond to you.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an enriching session and also for sharing your valuable experience with us. I request the chair, Professor Vibhuti, ma'am, to share her remarks before we go on with the Q&A session.
Thank you, Flavia, for such a candid presentation of what all has happened over last 4 decades in the women's movement. And you have been very judicious, and also you have presented all the position, which I like, that there are differences, there are dynamics, various dynamics and various rationale for why you take one position or the other, whether it is a domestic violence, whether it is a sexual violence, whether it is trafficking of women, and the current debate on sex work versus prostitution. And whether we see it in the rubric of gender-based violence or whether it's a women's agency. So it's a very important debate. That is a very interesting question. I think there are 3 questions for you. They can, Devarati, you can unmute yourself and ask, no? Because both the questions are extremely important. Yeah. They are written in the question box, but if you want, you can speak yourself. Otherwise, Shweta will read them. Yeah.
Yes, it seems like Ms. Debarti Chaudhary cannot unmute. I will read the question out.
Okay.
So, ma'am, the first question is, could you kindly comment on how certificatory or documented evidence plays a huge part in establishing rape as well as caste atrocities? For instance, intricate noting of genital injuries, caste certificate to qualify as an atrocity within law. Does this not make even imagining access to justice substantially together for women and gender minorities, especially from Dalit, Adivasi, and Muslim background? This is the first question.
Yeah, I agree. It's very difficult to document, particularly for sexual violence. How do you document that? So firstly, you don't want to talk about it. And secondly, when you want to report also, you don't want to be graphic about it. You feel very bad and you are very sketchy in your FIR. So when the matter goes to court, the court is saying, but where is the violence? Where is the rape? Nothing is said about the rape in the FIR. So we need to educate our young children, women, etc., and the police that how do you record a complaint of rape? How do you graphically explain exactly what happened? Because you say everything before, you say everything afterwards. But the incident of rape, you brush aside in 1 sentence or 2 sentences. He raped me. But what did he do? That is never comes up at all. Because the girl herself is very self-conscious. And more importantly, the police is self-conscious. If the young police officer and a young girl narrating the experience or incident before him, he is also very self-conscious. He doesn't want to record. So you are right. That documentary proof is very important. And immediately what happens after the rape is very important. Who does she tell? How long she takes to report? What has happened in the meantime? Who all has she spoken to? Etc. And then also whether she has washed herself, whether she has washed her clothes, whether she has gone to the hospital, whether hospital records are there, whether semen is found in her thighs, in her vagina, all these things are, and is it matching with the accused person? These are all the evidences, documentary evidence that we need to convict. And these are not there in most situations. So this is where we run into trouble. Now, this is one side of the story where a stranger rape has happened. But when a family rape has happened, most of the time, the girl is pregnant and goes to hospital. And that's the time it is discovered that she is sexually violated. So it's not one time or two time, it is a long drawn process. And here, and then the girl doesn't want to have the child, she has an abortion, etc. So whatever proof is there is also lost. So we need to educate our doctors, women in general, families, etc. That how do you preserve evidence in order to get conviction? Because conviction just doesn't happen just like that. So it is very important to get the conviction that the documents are proof that is required to prove an offense of rape or to prove an offense of violence, domestic violence or sexual violence of minors in the family. These are all very difficult and tricky questions, and we need to have much more awareness about this. Very good question.
Now,
Yeah.
Debarati, are you able to unmute? There is second question also which you have asked. Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Hello. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for responding to that question, ma'am. That was really helpful. The second question I had was regarding sex work, the point that you were mentioning about the different schools of or the perspectives that exist on how sex work is practiced in the country and the legal recourse that is often taken. My question was that though there can never be any justification for the kind of abuse that sex workers are subjected to, often by police as well, but in the in a context like that of India, where Dalit women are disproportionately pushed into in a form of sexual slavery, and we find a disproportionate representation of Dalit women within sex work as well. So, how much of a consensual voluntary profession can sex work really be? That was the question that I wish to know your comments.
A very good question again, and I agree with you. Now, caste and class, all this matter a lot. So to say it was voluntary, it's very difficult. And whether she had any choice, and what do we mean by voluntary, what choice is there, etc. But today, there are certain communities, there are certain NGOs which work with women to empower them and to help them to come out if they want, or to continue and form collectives of sex workers where they can demand their rights. This is very, I agree there are certain sex work communities also, and within that it is possible to empower women to explain to them their rights. But overall, I agree it is not so easy, and particularly if you are coming from a marginalized community, and then you are forced into sex work, and then to say whether it is choice or not is not easy job at all. And once you are stuck in the sex work, it's extremely difficult to exercise your choice to come out. It's not possible at all, unless you have very strong support structure by way of an NGO, which is helping you in the locality or in the vicinity of the community, and the community support is there or not. So I agree with you. It is not so easy to determine whether choice was there or not there, and how many people actually do have a choice, and how many are just getting into it for economic needs or family pressure, and there's no way out for them. And once you are into it, you are trapped. Very insightful questions. I agree.
What the questions are?
Yeah.
Bharti Agarwal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Bharti Agarwal, ma'am, you could unmute yourself, and I request you to kindly introduce yourself as well, shortly, very briefly.
Okay. Hi. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the presentation, and thank you so much for giving me a chance to ask my question. I've just recently completed public policy masters from UK, and because my masters was on a very similar subject, it was on sexual violence laws in India and the contribution of civil bodies in the amendment of laws. So I think my question is very much oriented towards that angle as well. There are just two basic ones. First was, I agree with you, ma'am, when you say that, laws are being changed and other legal changes are coming into place with time. Nothing has come all of a sudden, but the mentality is not changing how we would like for it to change with the growing times and the legal changes. When we say that there is a gap between the mentality change and the legal changes that are happening, how do we reduce this gap? Because one would say that education would do so, but while I was researching for my dissertation, time and again, I was coming across aggravators or perpetrators who were educated themselves. When we say that doctors need to be educated, and then you find that doctors are the aggravators while doing certain kind of tests or collecting evidences in rape cases, they are also violating the victim all over again in different ways. What is it that can be done? Because I don't feel, of course, education plays a role, but I don't feel it is one short, right, crisp answer to the problem that we are facing today. How do we deal with it?
When we say mind change or attitude change, we need to do a lot more work at the ground level. And what we are doing is just scratching the surface. We're not going deeper into changing mindsets. Not connected to what the question you are asking, but at a general level, I just want to say marriage remains a very important landmark in the woman's life. So whole family is geared towards this, that this girl must be married, this girl must be married. If she's not married, she is something lacking. And we have to get her married. Now she is getting older and we have to get her married. Now, having got married, she has to stay married. So even if there is violence, etc., nobody is ready to accept it. Now, unless this attitude changes, never mind what changes in law for violence against women is there, but the family and the girl herself accept that this is my lot and I don't want to do anything. Let me stay within this situation. I know so many cases, even my own relatives and all going through this, and they don't cannot do anything, don't want to do anything, and they're stuck in this violent marriages. So this is the sad reality into which we are there. So unless you can make all kinds of laws, but unless the mindset changes, and unless there are infrastructural developments as support structures, which we do not have. We have laws, but we do not have the infrastructure support for a woman to leave and come out with her children, where she'll stay, what she'll do, where is the support, where's the maintenance, etc. And that takes years to get the maintenance. Meanwhile, what is she to do? And even the maintenance is meager. It's not enough for her livelihood needs as abroad. So how does she manage her life? It's so easy to say, why doesn't she leave? But it's not easy to leave at all. So this is the reality into which we are stuck. And while we make laws, we are not developing the necessary infrastructure, safe stay homes, immediate shelters, shelters where she can stay with her children, immediate legal aid, courts acting in a prompt manner and delivering justice. All these are not happening in our society. So while we say mindset is required, for me, infrastructural support is most important.
Okay. That would make sense, I think. This is not a question as much as it is a point in the discussion, that because we were talking about mentality changes, and there's this article by Veena Das, ma'am. She says that how a victim is treated during the whole court trial and whatever judgment is passed is often also based on where she lies in the marital setup in a society, whether or not she is married. If she is married, then she would always be taken as a victim who happened to get the worst side of the perpetrator. And if she is not married, then she must have done something to call it upon herself or things like that. So that is why I kept asking that what is the way out of it? Because when we say mentality changes, all of us think that it's about the society, which obviously it is, but I think it also needs to start at the judiciary itself. When we are saying they are the ones passing the judgments, they are the ones introducing legal changes, bringing new laws, they also need to adapt to the new laws. They also need to change at least their own thinking, because that is what defines judiciary apart from the whole society. That is what I think.
You're absolutely right. If you see the judgments and the comments they pass, it's horrifying.
They are.
If it's not just they are acquitting, but the comments they pass about the women is
Exactly.
most disturbing. So, and there are a lot of trainings that are happening for the judges, especially the trial court judges, etc. But even when we are invited to speak, if I speak one way, another senior judge will come and speak exactly the opposite way.
Exactly.
And the participants will take what the judge is saying rather than what I am saying. So
Correct.
now we'll stop going because it is of no use. It doesn't bring in any changes within the system unless you have actually very good judges, training judges. Outsiders training is of no use.
Exactly. And sometimes you would expect that women judges would have more sensitivity towards the case. And then you get so disappointed based on their judgments. What did she just end up saying? Like, you would just expect somebody to feel the thing, but they just don't. Right with Debrati, what she said with the whole caste and class thing, I think when the victims are Dalit, then the judgments are even worse. Because I remember studying one wherein the judge said, oh, no uncle and nephew would rape a same Dalit because that would be so derogatory to them. It's as if the judge forgot about the victim and her identity and her mishappening altogether and went on to the identity of the perpetrator and said, oh, well, they belong to the higher caste and it would be so derogatory for them to rape a Dalit woman, so this must have not happened. These are just not some things that you would expect out of judiciary, the highest position holders, to be passing justice into the society. But yes, I'm done with my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. I also request Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, ma'am, to share her remarks.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful presentation. Your work is always inspiring, and rightly as the discussion is going on. So, ma'am, we know about the Mathura's case judgment and the whole concept of consent, and then now we are still stuck. In terms of judiciary, we are still stuck onto that debate of consent. We have never been able to come out of that. So, sensitization programs and training programs have not helped much. So now what should be the way out to really to change that kind of attitude? Because even from the judges now, this is MP High Court judgment which says that the rapist should marry the victim and they could be easily acquitted. So in that kind of situations, what as women's movement or as citizens, what should we do?
A lot of judicial trainings are going on. They're spending a lot of money in the Bhopal Judicial Academy, which is national, and then statewide judicial academies, etc. But at the end, you can see no difference on the ground. And when they're sitting in their courts, they still continue to have these archaic attitudes towards women. So we need to have some monitoring system of these trainings. So much money is being spent and so much training is taking place. But what is the impact of this training? What are the monitoring tools that we have to use? Now, there's a belief that you cannot monitor the judiciary. The complete judicial independence has to be there, and nobody can monitor them. So with that, the training is just going down the drain. So it is not having an impact. So unless you have an audit of the impact, how can you judge what your training is doing and where the changes are being brought about and where it's not? So that is, according to me, is the big problem. And this is where we need to work and put pressure to see that how do we bring in attitudinal changes within the judiciary? Because unless the judiciary changes its attitude, whatever we do at the ground level is of no use. I'm not saying there's no change, but it's very little change.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Yeah, surely we should have a kind of monitoring system, or maybe the kind of research on judgments and bring them out. Okay, this is what you're doing, and you have been doing consistently over years, and you have not changed. So maybe that kind of mirror reflection on maybe that could help. So they have come out with a booklet on combating gender stereotypes recently, but then again, how it will be used and how much impact it will have, we have to maybe again see in future. So thank you, ma'am.
Yes, Ms. Bharti, ma'am, you have raised your hand.
Yes, it was just in line with what ma'am just said. I remember when the 2013 amendments were happening for the sexual violence cases, and all these civil societies and women groups and other groups came in to give their suggestions to the JS Justice Committee, Jeswarma Committee. I think they also said that there needs to be monitoring mechanisms which are audited by civil societies, women groups. So I think that is wherein this very important stakeholder comes in. When you say that the judges are not passing judgments as they should, or their sensitization training is not working as it should, I think this is what could be a good step in the way wherein the third parties, the civil societies, the organizations or groups which are derived towards it, which are self-motivated to work in this field, monitors them. When judges pass such judgments, I am not sure if they can be tried on the same, but if they can't, then at least they need to be called out socially, publicly. They need to be called out, because until that happens, the calling out happens, and until we start questioning the judgment itself, I'm not saying break down judiciary, definitely don't do that, but until we start questioning judgments itself, then we will be trapped not just within this problem, but within the mentality of some judge who is stuck in this problem.
Exactly. That's what has been women's movement has been doing immediately. So many cases of POCSO cases where the victim was asked to marry the perpetrator, and also the case where they said that only touching the clothes, no, if somebody molests you, if it is your body, it's not direct touch to your body, then it is not sexual harassment. Or the case where the woman says that he's the only breadwinner, even after all the cases are proved, evidences are there in favor of the victim, and it is proved that that man, the accused, has perpetrated barbaric act. They would say, but he's the only breadwinner. He has a great future. He's the only support to the old parents. So this kind of judgments, when they were given, we had a demonstration in front of the court. Even we also, so whenever women's movement protests, no, then they backtrack, and even they take action also. But I think in between they had stopped the training for the judges, no? So I think the whole new batch which has come, which has no exposure to this kind of discourses, no? They only just know that they parrot the sections of IPC, but this whole understanding of the gender relations and all, they don't have.
And they also need to, I think, figure out hurt in other ways than just physical hurt, because what they end up saying a lot of times is, there are no evidences of she being physically harmed, so we might as well let him go because 7 years is too much and he's the sole bread earner. And when you say marry the perpetrator and it's not rape anymore, I think you're totally letting go of the psychological impact it can have on the victim, because you are asking her to marry the perpetrator. She felt violated with him. How will she ever feel secure? What is the whole concept of marriage if not about security? You do not want to settle down with somebody.
Treated as a piece of furniture, not as a human being with her own
Exactly.
agency, no? Nobody even bothers to ask what it means.
And especially, like ma'am said, there are two kinds of rape: stranger rape and family members doing that. When family members are doing this, the psychological impact she will have, not just because someone she knows did it, but also because other people in her family are going to ask her to not report it, because you can't do that to your uncle, you can't do that to your father, you can't do that to your brother. And even if she does, even if she's strong and courageous enough to do it and they get punished, then she is banned from her own family. That you put the men behind the bar, you are not allowed in this family anymore. So the whole psychological impact of the victim is, I think, completely foregone, not given any attention while the judgments are taking place or judicial action is undergone.
I think Vibhuti ji has also raised hand. Yeah. Hello, please unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am. So just adding to the kind of language that is also used in judicial discourses, I think one very important thing that we often, I guess, miss is how several of the laws till today are connected. So there's a specific section under 354, which is about outraging modesty, right? So when we continue to attach the sexual abuse, harassment of a woman to modesty instead of a violation of her bodily autonomy, the way that violence is interpreted and therefore proved in the courts of law is also very different. So I think that shift also needs to happen.
So now I think the new directive or the booklet which Supreme Court has prepared, I think that takes care of it. But still, there are so many issues regarding like sex work. There is a big controversy going on in the feminist circle currently, whether we can use that term instead of saying that those who are forced into sexual activity, commercial sexual activity, and those who have chosen to be this. So I think it is work in progress currently. Yeah. But I think we have to continue the debate with the structures and systems of judiciary as well as the implementation agencies like police, criminal justice system, even the hospitals, the medicos, because their evidences, they bear major weightage in the court. Yeah. So,
thank you, Advocate Dr. Flavia, Agnes, Professor Vibhuti.
We have last question by Divyansh. Let us also have one male view. Divyansh, you can unmute. Or come to
Divyansh Dwivedi. Yes, please go ahead.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm Sparsh, but I didn't get the link. That's why I asked Divyansh. I think that's the reason it is showing as Divyansh. So basically, I had this question. I think I posted
excuse me.
Yeah.
Ma'am, before you pose your question, may I request you to kindly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Sparsh, and right now I'm working as Indira Fellow with your Congress Party, and I am engaged with political empowerment of women. Like I'm supposed to mobilize women in my constituency. I just started this month only. Before that, I was working for 2 years as the Mahatma Gandhi National Fellow with Ministry of Skill Development. My question, I really think on these issues on these lines, and I have recently published a book, and most of the poems are about gender issues. So what I wanted to ask was, it was a very personal thing. In my family, I have seen this guy is my immediate cousin, and he is assistant district magistrate as of now, and his first marriage got broken down because of the same issue, and after so many years he got married to a very younger woman, very beautiful, a very nice woman, and he is doing the same thing. And when my bhabhi is telling me these stories, and I'm trying to help her out, although I was not working at the time, what I found is that slowly she was forced to break all the contacts with me, and like they come, but now bhabhi doesn't come much or doesn't interact with me much. She doesn't calls me up on various occasions, and I tried my best to connect her with civil society organization, but she was not willing because she didn't have any family support. Her own family was like wiped out in COVID times. So she thinks, like officer ki wife hu, to ab wahi hai, do betiyan hain. So what do we do? So what I felt what I should do, because I have written an article on domestic violence, and ma'am, I read a research paper from you only, and it rattled me like anything. And then when I wrote, and then I came across, experienced myself. So my question is this: what somebody, because मुझे ये कहा गया कि फैमिली में कि अरे तुम चुप रहो, तुम अपना काम करो, रिश्ते खराब हो जाएंगे. And although my parents are very vocal about these issues otherwise, but in family, people are like so accommodative of such kind of matters that उनकी कोई इज्जत खराब नहीं हुई क्योंकि वो तो अधिकारी हैं. And the women, मुझे लगता है कभी मिलेंगी और मैं पूछूंगी तो वो कहेंगी भी नहीं, उस चीज को बताएंगी भी नहीं, because now she has got another daughter. पहले एक ही बेटी थी, अब दूसरी बेटी भी हो गई, तो अभी बच्चियां पालनी है. So what do we do? That I was really worried about.
Flavia?
Yeah, I know the problem is very challenging, and there are no easy way out. You have to take a stand, and that's taking a stand is not easy, particularly within the family. But some of us have taken stand and stood very firmly.
Paid the price.
And paid the price also. Very difficult. Otherwise, you have to give up. So I like your courage. I like the way you posed the question also. And I think it's a very important question. And you have to stand by your convictions, and you have to be strong, and you should lend the support to this woman so that, and advise her properly so that she's able to struggle against this violence and able to come out of it. Otherwise, she will not be. And otherwise, she'll be facing a lot of problems. But I'm so happy that you are identified the problem and you are articulating the problem very well. So I wish you all the luck. I wish you will find a way out of this to help her.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I will try my best.
Yeah, now there are so many agencies are there helping women, etc. You could try to contact some of them and see what help they can give you a relative.
Yeah, but I think for that, she needs to have that courage as well.
That's it.
Because
You can't find someone else's battle. In the final analysis, it is the person who wants change. You can provide solidarity, you can provide support, you can show alternative, but unless she is ready to fight, because we did it in our younger days, intervene, but then due to family pressure, they change. We have been alleged as a thieves and housebreakers and all sorts of things, no, gundas also, because a woman cries for help, you go there, and then family members pressurize her, she changes. Even habeas corpus cases, like you are in the court, and she sees her mother crying, and she changes her mind. And then when women activists become villain, all that we have faced during 80s, no? And in the final analysis, it is the person who has to muster courage to come out. We can support, provide.
And it is her life, and she has to make her choice. Correct. And she has every right to change her choice also. But then we suffer in the middle. So it is very important that she is firm, and then only we can support her. Otherwise, we cannot support her. Yeah. She has a right to change her mind. I'm not saying she doesn't have a right.
She has a right to change.
But in the middle, we should not suffer. We should not get tainted by that.
Which our generation had to, which Flavia, our generation, you and me, our generation had to. In fact, newspapers also wrote so many things about us. So after that, we realized that we have to maintain the record, and we have to get her signature in that she has approached us, and then we have to make 3 copies, and one remains in the organization, one remains with her, one remains with the police before we take any action. No, all that it was a trial and error during the 80s. Like we jumped into the fray, and then the system, and now the same protocols and SOPs, which we as women's movement created on the basis of our first-hand experience, police also started using, and they started inviting those same police officers used to call us decoy and antisocial element. They started inviting us as experts and resource persons for the training of police officers in the police academy. So things changed after 5-6 years. Even social work institutions started institutionalizing the practices with the feminist activism has used in the early 80s. No, so that happened. But I think, you have to also mobilizing within your group party. You have to make a group of women so that you have a collective wisdom and collective spirit, so that you don't get isolated and demoralized and witch hunted, which is very important. Because women's movement always says women united will never be defeated. That's a Latin American feminist have taught us.
I believe what you said earlier, economic empowerment is very important. There is a class difference. My bhabhi is not earning that much. She is a normal employee, and the husband is an officer. So ऐसा लगता है कि आगे क्या होगा, right? And I also can't assure her ना कि lifelong मैं उन्हें support कर पाऊंगी, kind of. So that I believe is the core. Like for me, I have graduated from IIT Bombay. I have prepared for civil services for 8 years, written my exams from sociology. I still have this, risk-taking capability. But she feels कि ये नहीं तो क्या, और मैं भी उन्हें वो courage नहीं दे पा रही हूँ कि अगर सब छोड़ दिया तो आगे क्या होगा. So that is the core. I thought so.
You are right. Very important. Yes. Very rich discussion we had today. Extremely important, relevant issues.
Also, I think we have missed Miss Debarti Chowdhury ma'am's introduction. Ma'am, I kindly request you to introduce yourself.
Hi. So I am I've just completed my MPhil research in women's studies from Jadavpur University, and I am also currently I've just joined the research affiliate program with NLU Delhi, where I'm trying to actually work on the kind of language that is used in court judgments in cases of rape and other sexual violence. So yeah, this fellowship is a really great opportunity for me, and I'm just glad to be learning from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. In interest of time, we will move on. I thank Advocate Dr. Flavia Agnes, Professor Vibhuti Patel, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, ma'am, for such an insightful session. Your expertise and knowledge have truly broadened our understanding in this area. I also thank the participants for such an engaging participation and also posing relevant questions. Thank you so much. We will now move on with the next session on women's movement in India, historical evolution and achievements by Vibhuti Patel, Professor Vibhuti Patel. Professor Vibhuti Patel is a visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI. Ma'am, welcome and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, friends. My task has been eased by Flavia's comprehensive and very erudite presentation. Both of us have been co-travelers in the women's movement right from the 80s. And today's presentation is nothing but an overview of it is important to contextualize the whole campaign against gender-based violence and the interventions against gender-based violence into the ways the contribution which the women's movement has made historically. So I think we know that this is not the first time that protest is happening. Women have protested in a different ways, even in the most adverse circumstances. We have a glorious legacy of Bhakti movement from 12th century to 16th century, social reform movement in the 19th century, freedom movement of the first half of the 20th century. And all these women freedom fighters were not only fighting for the national liberation, but they were also social reformers in their personal life. And the women's rights movements of 1970 onwards, which raised the slogan of personal is political and political is personal, which was nothing but the whole lecture of Flavia was signified that how the personal and political are intertwined, and the importance of solidarity and sisterhood, collective strength and collective wisdom, that is very important. And what we aim at is a gender just world, that without human liberation there can't be women's liberation, and there can't be human liberation without women's liberation. Both of them are intertwined. We have a very progressive Constitution of India, and women freedom fighters, 15 of them played a pivotal role in shaping Indian Constitution, which is Article 14, 15, 16, which are the touchstone of all the legal reforms we have had in the women's rights movements. I think these women had played very important role. Amu Swaminathan, Begum Aziz Rasool, Dakshayani Vilayathan, Durgabai Deshmukh, Hansaben Mehta, Kamla Chaudhary, Leela Roy, Malti Chaudhary, Purnima Banerjee, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, Renuka Ray, Sarojini Naidu, Sucheta Kriplani, Vijaya Lakshmi Pandit, and Annie Maskaranas. And the most unique contribution was that of Dakshayani Vilayathan, who had fought against the extremely barbaric, inhuman custom or against the Dalit women who were not even allowed to cover their chest. So she had to fight that. She got educated, her brother encouraged her, Gandhiji spotted her, and then she became a very important person in the women's movement. And her daughter, Dr. Meera Vilayathan, is the ex-president of Indian Association for Women's Studies. So the first phase of feminism, which was marked by the first generation of English-educated women's struggle against the child marriage, widow burning, female infanticide, and efforts for women's education and voting right. So in the 19th century social reform movement and 20th century freedom movement, I think it was a very, very important role. Those who say that Indian women got right to vote or idle franchise on the platter, they are misguided. It never came without, if you go through the documents from 1930 to 1947, you know that how much women members of Congress had to struggle for right to vote. Though Gandhiji was highly influenced by the suffragist movement when he was studying in England, and he learned the lessons of Satyagraha from them. But within Congress also, there were patriarchal forces who were disinclined to have a right to vote for women. What we saw in the 70s and my generation, which got sensitized to the social transformation, was the solidarity for the women's Vietnam struggle, not only in India, but all over the world. Women students, young women, journalists, who were the first generation of professional women, they all came into the streets. They fought for the larger issues, and they realized that all these social transformatory, whether it was a civil rights movement or the African National Liberation Movement or fight against racism or solidarity for Cuban and Vietnam Revolution, all of them were relegating women's issues in the background. And with this discontent, the independent autonomous women's movement began in the late 70s, which is known as a second wave of feminism, and in which women who were active in students, youth, workers, peasants, tribal, Dalit, and civil liberties movement, they played a pivotal role, and they abhorred paternalism of benevolent benevolent forces, and they did not see that, they consider this as a social work or a charitable work, but our generation, we say that we are fighting for our own rights. Injustice or violence against one woman is an injustice and violence against all women. So it is with this concept and understanding of social solidarity and the right-based perspective that the second wave of feminism articulated issues which just took up varied issues. Gender-based violence was a central concern, declining sex ratio, which also brought in the question of sex-selective abortion and female infanticide, gender gap in education, reproductive rights of women. All of us had extremely horrible experiences of draconian population policy, the vertically imposed bureaucratic way of handling of population policy, which treated poor women only as a uterus, and the attack on their uterus through extremely harmful population control devices, that was also taken up. It was also seen within the rubric of violence against women. Rape and dowry murders, about which Flavia has told us extensively, portrayal of women, sexist images of women, because media plays a very important role in socially constructing our mindset, and the way mainstream media projects women only as a object of lust or object of sexual object, and doesn't totally deny their personhood. That was also one of the, at least in Gujarat, you can say in 72, the first action which took place in Ahmedabad in 1972 by Ahmedabad Women's Action Group, which was newly formed. It was against the sexist portrayal of women in the Gujarati humorous dramas and also some of the films. Unpaid care work and non-recognition of women work. I think our Divyaji, she brought up the issue that when your work is not recognized. Currently, the major debate that is happening. At one level, we are saying that violence against women has escalated in the post-pandemic world. It also coincides with more and more women out of the workforce. At one level, we have millions of women who are degree holders, not only BA, BCom, but also professional degree holders, but these degrees have not translated into career. So economic independence is a minimum necessary condition for dignity of life, so that at least when you face violence, you can think of an alternative. Challenging the religions and also their mediation of patriarchy. For example, the personal laws, religion-based family laws, which discriminate between man and women, brother and sister, husband and wife, father and daughter, father and mother, on the and most intimate areas of family relations, in the area of marriage and divorce and custody of child and property rights and right to stay in a matrimonial home, right to stay in a parental home, and entitlements for boys and girls. I think all these things have been challenged since 1970s in our country. And each time women challenged, whether it was a Mary Roy who challenged Travancore Christian Personal Act, or whether it was a Shabanu who asked for her maintenance rights within the Sharia, or it was two sisters, Bengali sisters, Lata Mittal and her sister, who asked for right to stay in a parental home or an inherited home. Every time they had to face emotional violence, psychological violence, and in fact, Mary Roy's brothers had even hired goons to hit her. Okay, and it was the women's movement which stood by her. She started giving lectures all over. She was traveling, continuously giving lectures, collecting signatures in the petition, which she had filed in the Supreme Court. First time the petition was read in the court, the judge said that, oh, you are westernized individualistic women. How can you challenge the family laws, which are based on customs and tradition? And every time, our country has a 30,000 customary laws. Some customary laws, they grant rights to women, but there are quite a few customary laws which demand virginity test, or the witch hunting of women who assert the witch hunting of single women. So many of them, they treat the chastity of a woman by extremely brutal method of pouring hot oil on her. We read just 2 days back what happened in Jharkhand, just because a community thought that she was not chaste. How much trauma and torture and public humiliation they did. So when women challenge this, they also face violence, and that women's movement has stood by women who are individually fighting. We don't believe that we have a right to decide any community's laws. It is the community, women from the community who would decide. And Flavia had raised a beautiful slogan at that time that all the men are minority, all women are Hindus, and some of us are brave. So when women from minority community, when they fight, what should be the role of the women's movement? It's not taking over their agenda, but it was supporting them. Strengthening them, providing them solidarity. Another very important concern is about decision-making and political participation. We have seen that after 1993, when we had a 73rd and 74th Amendment in the Constitution of India, with one stroke of pen, we had 1 million Indian women who crossed the boundary of domesticity and entered the public life in the local self-government bodies, urban and local. There are so many documentation of how these women had to face very aggressive misogynist patriarchy in certain blocks when they did not have and especially the Dalit and minority and tribal women who were elected representatives, and how the local vested interests used violence against them. So in a public life, and now we are going to have 33% reservation for women in legislature and parliament in 2029 election. And we will have to be prepared. The kind of psychological, emotional, and physical violence, sexual violence also, that women have to face, and what kind of preparedness we have. How are we going to change the mindset of politics where money power, muscle power, and mafia power, which they rule the roost. And the question of alternate sexuality, LGBTQIA community, the kind of atrocities they face by their own biological family and by the community, by the society, by the employer. These all come under the whole gamut of violence that the gender spectrum faces, not only men and women, but the gender spectrum faces. And the challenges which the Autonomous Women's Organization in India have faced, and also the women's wings of political party, I can understand, I empathize with what the struggle Divyaji is going on currently. She is championing the cause of women, she writes about it, and then you see in the personal life the dilemma that you are facing when you are faced with the violence. So another very important area when it comes to violence against women is a dialogue between women's studies and women's movement. Whenever you ask for any legal reforms, only anecdotal information will not do. In 1980, when we approached the Law Commission, what we were told? We were told that, what are you talking of anti-rape movement? if you have a character like that members of Law Commission told us, I was present there, that if you have a character of a Sita, then no Ravan can attack you. No? That was the understanding of members of Law Commission, the apex body which makes law reform. And what you are telling us is only your anecdotal information. And when we realized that we have to create evidence-based research and participatory action research that would provide evidence, statistics, and we also change even the data gathering agencies like NCRB or NFHS, all of them interacted with the feminist activists to devise their questionnaire so that we could get authentic data, which can result into not only legal reforms, but also the kind of structures and the systems and the processes that we need for this. I remember Flavia organizing a workshop on institutional support to women in social distress in 1982, which focused on the processes that we need to understand, whether you are in police station, whether you are in hospital, casualty ward, when the medical examination is happening, when you have to gather the witnesses, what kind of checklist you need to have so that your case doesn't get dismissed in the court of law. And so this kind of work also could happen because of the rigorous research and the participatory techniques which were used by the women activists and who also got legitimacy in the women's studies. So combination of theory and praxis, it's very important realization that we all have had. Creation of special interest group to have a super specialized knowledge on all sorts of different kinds of violence, whether it's a child sexual abuse or acid attack or domestic violence or cyber violence, which is also a very extremely complex issue. And now we have a deep fake also. So this is very important in creation of networks, local, state, national, regional, global. Currently, you know, the 1 billion rising campaign, which could reach, because it has a social media access, to the places where there was not even women's movement. There was no ground level movement. And there also they have been able to reach out and new groups of young women in their early 20s, early 30s have emerged, and they are also learning from this, the knowledge resources created by the women's movement, the number of posters and songs and discussion papers and skits, they have become very important. So the issues taken up by women's movement are the single issue platforms were also created mainly to get into the nuances of the problem, whether it was an anti-dowry campaign or the Nari Atyachar Virodhi Manch in Nagpur as well as in Bombay, Forum Against Rape, domestic violence, the fight against the Shakti Shilini focused on domestic violence, the Network for Women in Media that was created by by the women journalists who were doing the investigative journalism and reporting the cases of violence. And now the Network for Women in Media also supports the women who face sexual harassment, and the Me Too movement, in which so many women journalists wrote their horrifying testimonies, and they stood by the survivors and strengthened their hands, and now their membership of nearly 7,000 women journalists in our country. The question of the Forum Against Sex Determination and Sex-Based Selection, which started in 1982 when Flavia and myself, we were talking about, we were in a demonstration in Fisher Folks Colony, and she was holding one side of banner, I was holding another side of banner. That is the time where we discussed so many anecdotal information that we had about what was happening in terms of sex-selective amniocentesis test becoming popular even in the Bastis, no? And then we decided to have a Forum Against Sex Determination, Sex-Based Selection, which was housed by Women's Center. Later on, other states also came up, and by 1994, we had a central legislation against Forum Against Sex Selection and Sex-Based Selection and Sex Determination. The question of unsafe contraceptive became a very important concern, and where 6 women's organizations throughout the country, they filed a joint public interest litigation highlighting the harmful effect of hormone-based contraceptive, anti-pregnancy vaccine, and Norplant. discourse about the consent. I think in the previous, even in discussion session, we have discussed it at great length. So I'm not going about it, right from the Justice Chandrachud's judgment in 1980 till now. The consent has been a major issue around which the debates are going on. The unjust family laws and the contestation of the unjust family laws, which is happening, and it is a very sensitive issue because you have on one hand there is a lobby which also wants to have a uniform civil code, which can be very, very detrimental to the rights of minority communities per se and women from minority community. Women's movement has used both the legislative route as well as the judicial route. So legislative route, with that we got Equal Remuneration Act 1976, which is not only about remuneration, it is about the equal treatment, equal remuneration and equal opportunity. So if you are discriminated in your office, discrimination and harassment are two sides of the same coin. And that's why I think it's very important that this comprehensive law we understand, which is the most violated law because we have only 6% of the workforce is in the organized sector, which benefits of this law. Laws regarding violence against women, POCSO Act, Panchayati Raj Institutions Act, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, Maternity Benefits Act 2017, all of them are also very important. And I think in the women's movement, and so many times when these laws are violated, women suffer various types of discrimination and humanization. When it comes to judicial route, women's movement has used triple talaq, Bamma Bharatiya Muslim Mahila Andolan. From 6 women, they filed public interest litigation. A Parsi lady, she filed public interest litigation against Parsi Panchayat's weapon of using social boycott to a Parsi woman who marries a non-Parsi man. Nothing happens when Parsi man marries a non-Parsi woman. Even about the section 377, it was the LGBT community and the transgender community which have waged very, very 30-year-long campaign. And finally, we had first it was decriminalized, again the court criminalized it, and then once again when the movement protested it very robustly, then again it is now decriminalized. When it comes to legal reforms, whether it is a civil law, criminal law, labor law, and I think women's movement has played a pivotal role either through the union or social mobilizations, cooperative efforts, and writing about it, doing research for the legal reforms. The reproductive rights of women are part of the human rights. That's what the women activists in the health movement have raised it. Reservation of seats for women in electoral bodies. I think for 16 times the bill was introduced. Finally, now this year, we have in the month of September, now we have a women's reservation, at least in theory. Let us see when it rolls out actually in the in terms of electoral candidature, a 33% reservation in legislature and parliament. Rights of land rights and housing rights petitions have been filed, but they are in the cold storage. It was in 1986 that PIL was filed by Buribai and Dagibai of Maharashtra, and from Singapore, Laro Janko had filed them. But now I think unless any agitation or PIL is backed by the very strong people's movement or the women's movement, it doesn't get much traction. Special needs of single women. For the first time now, we have a Akhil Bharatiya Ekal Nari Sangatna, All India Single Women's Organization. They have come up with their own charter of demand in terms of social protection, social security, right to work, and dignity in life. This is the poster, very important for us because this is the time when women's groups had gone to Delhi. All of us had gone to Delhi. We had encircled the Parliament of India with a women's chain, and we all were asking for two things: Mathura, justice for Mathura, an amendment in the antiquated rape law. Flavia has told the whole very detailed and accurate story of how the anti-rape movement built up. The Maya Tyagi case at that time, also the women's movement stood by her, and it was another very important learning we had, that it was a woman police officer who had instigated her constable to rape Maya Tyagi, who she thought that was a decoy. She was a Daku, and she was very brutalized. And when we accompanied her to meet both Prime Minister and President of India at that time, Gyani Jail Singh. So this kind of action and individually negotiating with the sympathetic member of parliament also helped. For example, Madam Margaret Alva, she was accessible to the women's movement, with whom we had discussed when the woman from LIC, she asked for a maternity leave. Her boss dismissed her. Why? Because she was not married. How can unmarried woman have maternity leave? And when this was discussed with Madam Margaret Alva, she raised this issue in the Parliament of India and demanded that maternity and morality are two different issues. Any woman who is mother deserves maternity leave, and nobody has asked right to ask her whether she is married or not. The question of consent, which has been debated in the women's movement, when we talk about what is consent and what is power, I think this poster explains it very well, that consent is not just lack of no, you need a real yes. Just because your relationship is legal doesn't mean it is equal. That means we are talking about the marital rape. Okay, you may be legally wedded, but do you have right to violate bodily integrity and dignity of your spouse? When consent is respect. Okay, say what you want to do, ask what you want to do, respect, answer no matters what. Consent means each person actively wants to participate in whatever physical or sexual act is happening. People who are drunk, high, or asleep cannot give consent. So if you can never, in any case where woman or a victim is under influence of any kind of alcohol or any kind of narcotic, and if that person is raped, it can't be treated as a consent because they are semi-conscious, unconscious. Always ask before you touch someone. It is easy and respectful. So these are the simple things we need to teach right from the preschool days. And I think National Education Policy 2020 has focused on gender sensitization right from the preschool days. So I think this has to be nurtured in a very, very, this kind of values have to be, and ethos have to be nurtured at a very, very young age. Otherwise, WDC in the college, when you have this gender sensitive, ideas are already formed. So it's very important. Then we come to the structures which perpetuate this kind of culture of gender-based violence is the course of economic development, and how marginalization of women from the economy and feminization of poverty, where women are at the bottom of the pyramid of poverty. I think that also increases their vulnerability to violence. Now here, this poster by the women's movement is very important, that the kind of development we have had, where is the livelihood for a woman? Where does she have any say in what, in any kind of a development discourse? Everything are marginalizing her. They are taking away agency. They are dispossessing her from the entitlements. And every time she asserts, even she takes some dry wood from the forest, police beats her up, and she's treated as a criminal and a thief. So I think we need to connect individual agonies and the tragedies of women to the systems and structures which perpetuate them. What we see is that now we are in the third stage of feminist wave, where it is the women who are from the most vulnerable, intersectionally vulnerable communities. They are articulating their concerns and fighting for their rights, because the most innovative and and energizing writings and actions are happening by the young Dalit women, young tribal women, women from the LGBTQIA community. And they have deepened the discourse of discontent, because there is an allegation that the previous wave of feminism talked about subordination and violence against women, but they were more sensitive to the needs of upper caste, upper class women. as the second question which was asked, I think that was asked by, I think Devjan, that how, when it comes to Dalit, tribal or minority women, to what extent are we sensitive to the violence they are facing in their day-to-day life? The question of the condition of women in the special economic zone, free trade zone, the EPZs, and feminization of poverty, that also needs to be challenged. And what we see is that this whole, in the name of flexible labor, they are taking away women's agency to unionize, to fight against exploitation, because some of the worst things which we had never heard in the history of working class movement are happening now. For example, 370,000 sugarcane workers who travel from one district to another district. Sugarcane owners are demanding hysterectomy. So these women are forced, in their early 20s, they are forced to hysterectomize unless they produce the bill, produce the certificate that they have got their uterus removed. They don't even get job in the sugarcane factory, which we have not heard. We are getting reports of some garment workers in Bangalore, young adolescent girls who are between the age group of 15 to 23. They are forced to take emergency contraception to postpone their menstruation so that the production target of the garment industry can be used. So these are the modern forms in which the violence is taking place. Similarly, one has heard about what's happening in the Sumangali scheme in Tamil Nadu, where the what is it called, dormitory-based production system is there. These young girls have to sign the MOU that they would remain in the factory area. Even if they feel lonely, if they start crying, they want to meet their parents, they lose out everything, and they have to work for 12 hours. They are eating there, they are sleeping there, they are doing production so that garment industries don't lose out time in their commuting. So this kind of newer forms are happening, and you call them flexible labor. It is not flexible labor. It is a modern form of slavery. It is wage theft. And I think we need to articulate and also express our solidarity in action. Livelihood concerns of women, such as fuel, fodder, water, animal care, agriculture, kitchen gardening, food security, food sovereignty, all of them are extremely important. And this is called, when we talk about development, we also need to link up with the systemic and structural violence, because when you take away their entitlement of this and you make them more vulnerable, this when women fight for their right, you use the state repression. That's what currently is happening in Manipur, no? Where it is basically the forest dwellers who have stayed there for centuries. They have been thrown out, and that is ethnic. It looks like ethnic violence, but the material basis for that is the right to stay, their entitlement to land, their entitlement to forest. Now, in 1997, Supreme Court passed a landmark judgment, which was a Vishaka directive in response to Babri Devi's rape, gang rape of Babri Devi. I think there is going to be a special session. I think Dr. Shalu will be talking about it, and which culminated into a Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act. And now it is mandatory for all enterprises and employers to create the internal complaints committee, and also prominently put forward the gist of the law, and also the members of the internal complaints committee who can be approached. In the corporate world, we talk about the glass ceiling, how women, when they try to aspire for promotion, they use the weapon of sexual harassment against them. And that's why you can see women are allowed, highly qualified, this year's Nobel laureate, Professor of Harvard University, she has shown that how this kind of weapons are used so that women don't aspire to attain. Though they are equally qualified, they would not aspire for higher wages, they would not demand equal wages, even at the higher echelons of power structures. So I think it's economic rights and the violence against women, how they are related. So now what we have seen that over the last 50 years, women's movement has challenged 5,000 years of patriarchy, which is a very important mission by taking up gender-based violence, in the ecological movement, women with disability, the movement of women with disability, health movement, women working in the war zones and the conflict areas, feminist solidarity for sex workers, intersectionality as a overarching theoretical perspective to understand one's privileges and other people's vulnerability, which is very important. And still, we have a polarization of public opinion. That's what is the dynamism of the women's movement, that you have more than one positions, but still the dialogues are going on. Feminist movement is using social media in a big way. Feminist India Yahoo group, Prajna archives, our archives, CWDS archives, Sparrow archives, they play a very important in deprivatizing the knowledge and the collective wisdom created by the women's movement, so that groups which have not had a direct first-hand experience of participating in the women's movement, they can also learn and come up with their own strategies of intervention in their local situation. Alliance with the LGBT movement. Luckily, in India, we don't have LGBT movement and the women's rights movement at the loggerheads. From the very beginning, there has been a very healthy relationship between the two. Section 377, even about that, women's movement has always been vociferous and been supportive to the LGBT movement. International debates, the Indian feminist movement has played very important role in taking active interest in both solidarity activity as well as the discourses that have happened globally, even discourses on transnational feminist solidarity, discourses on post-colonial feminism, and how to sensitize the younger generation and the generational equality that we can have. The path-breaking document by Geeta Sen and Karen Brown of Dawn, Development Alternatives with Women, or the recent 1 Billion Rising campaign, which has now more than, I think, 1 billion women who are women, girls, and the sexual minorities actively fighting and actively campaigning against gender-based violence. So it's a very important, and what we see is that women in all sectors of the economy and all parts of the society and all sections of the society, they are now getting increasingly sensitized to women's rights and women's rights to dignity, and create a society which is free of violence. Thank you. These are some of the references. All of them are in public domain. You can get them both as documents and also YouTube videos by this the stalwarts. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a very informative session, highlighting the history of feminism and human rights, how it evolved and over time. I'm sure it enlightened our gathering today with such interesting facts. Before we take up, we have a question of Arpita ma'am. Before we take up that question, which was missed in the previous discussion, I invite Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam ma'am for her remarks and thoughts.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful presentation. Listening to you is always, it's like, more enriching, kind of knowledge. Like it's a treasure of knowledge. And, with your experiences, first-hand experiences of 70s and 80s, I think that is not available in any books or anywhere else, which I have not come across, such kind of, material. So I think we have to, we need to have more and more of such sessions, so that, this kind of information could be recorded and people should be able to use that. Yeah. So, but just one thought that, the women's movement we have struggled and we have, done so much, and still we need to do so much, with reference to the current political environment, and what should as young feminist scholars or researchers or journalists or whatever profession we are in, so what kind of steps should we take to really to keep pushing on this, all the efforts you people have made, so we have to keep it, revive it, and take it forward. in the current kind of scenario?
I think most important thing is that wherever you are, you have to stick out your neck. That's the, as an individual, because patriarchy is very, very complex. It is like octopus. You just try to remove one tentacle, there are other 7 tentacles which would create suffocation for you. But it is very important to speak about it, write about it, express solidarity in actual life. I think that's a very, very important message that we have. And what I don't feel very depressed, because there are ways. Yeah, currently we see a lot of disintegration, attack on women, women's rights all over the world. But at the same time, if we work at a ground level, a lot of interesting things are happening, even among the younger generation. You see, during the pandemic also, 3,75,000 children approached helpline. One had never seen 7th standard, 8th standard children would fight for their rights. Like, I'm getting forcibly married, or my parents are selling me to the traffickers. This kind of awareness one had never seen. Even when you go to WDC, or when you, the kind of questions even the boys ask. First of all, in WDC, now you see increasing, especially after the Nirbhaya tragedy, increasing number of young boys and men, they are attending. Even the teachers, refresher course on gender. You would see 20, 25 teachers, men teachers who are there, and they don't ask frivolous questions, which was used to happen in the 80s and 90s when we were. They are seriously, because they are concerned about this issue. So this I see as a new thing, which is quite encouraging. But at the same time, at a macro level, yeah, we see a lot of backlash. And backlash is happening because women are becoming more articulate. They are entering the areas. They are not only now clerks and typists and secretaries. It is not that mills and booms kind of a reality that we are in. Women are in all walks of life. They are like, when I joined the university, no woman teacher aspired to have promotion. She joined as a lecturer, she retired as a lecturer. No non-teaching staff aspired to go beyond whatever junior clerk or things. She would retire. Now it is not the case. Women are aspiring for, they are demanding equal rights, and they are there in, they are confident, they are competent. And that has created tremendous male anxiety. And some of them also feel that they may miss the bus, and this woman may surpass her. So I think it is also professional jealousy, or even in the community, because what we saw after the globalization, massive male unemployment, and women, their wives and daughters and mothers inducted in the workforce as an informal sector worker with 1/3 or 1/4 salary, but still they have money. Well, this man don't have. They have to ask for money. So that also, this the question of emasculation, which the men are facing, that also comes out in the form of society. Violence in the community and the harassment, street harassment, and also within the domestic arena. Nobody can rationalize it, it is there. But we need to understand that how the systems and structures are functioning. We have to change both individual behavior, change the mindset, as well as also change the systems and structures.
Thank you, ma'am. We have Ms. Arpita, ma'am, with her question. Ma'am, I kindly request you to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah.
Namaste to all the esteemed panelists. It was a really enlightening session, which we were expecting. Most of the youth and the women of this age, they really need such a session where they are enough encouraged to take certain steps and also educate themselves about such nuanced and the problems which are right now faced in this era with regards to gender-based violence. And I am Arpita. I'm currently preparing for civil services examination, and I feel extremely honored to be a part of this session. And I would like the panel members and also Dr. Flavia ma'am to throw some light upon the major issue which has been always, used to pop up in my head when there happens to be a situation of domestic violence or sexual abuse that happens inside house. How any women regardless of the age, regardless of the background where she comes from, or even the caste, or whatever the situation, either she is employed or unemployed, how and what is the course of action that she can take without any hesitation, when it comes to a legal course of action, like whom she has to approach. And because the trauma in which she must be going through at the time of violence, she could not gather so much she could not gather so much courage to step out of her house, lodge a complaint, and also take up certain medical steps where she is enough protected and enough supported enough from the medical staff, or even the legal law and order which is involved in the registration of a case, even to file a complaint, even to make a zero FIR. What are the steps she has to take in regards to that?
Work of Majlis is exactly about that. Flavia? Yeah. How does Majlis empower you? Your work for Manodhairya, as well as the booklets which you have come up with, step-by-step approach.
There are now counseling centers, there are special cells at the block level also, which are where professional social workers are there. You should contact any of them because Majlis is a very small entity. It's not national, so you need to contact whatever is there locally and then move on to file the case. What you need is a support person who will walk the journey with you. Just say, go to the police station, file a case and all, it's not easy. I agree with you. And there's a lot of support that is needed even to do that. So she needs support from a social worker or from the counseling center or a special cell to walk the journey with her. And once she gets that, she will get the courage to take the next step.
Your publication, Journey to Justice, can you tell about that? And some of those short films of Majlis?
Yeah, Journey to Justice is a very old publication. 1990 we published it.
It was very helpful. It was very helpful for us frontline workers.
It is very helpful, and it's a very good booklet. Very small booklet, explains in a very simple language the steps that are not only the steps that are taken, but also the hurdles you will meet. What are the challenges you will face, and also how difficult it is. Where nobody is going to trust you unless you have marks of injury, or after the rape you have not washed yourself, you have kept the clothes, etc. As evidence. So nobody thinks about this evidence and all that when you go and file a case. So it's all this is explained in this booklet, and we also have small films, 2-minute, 3-minute advertisement films, which shows what are your rights and how do you get those rights. It's called Kya. It's a series called Kya Aapko Pata Hai, and that has been very successful. It has been shown on national media also, television, etc. And that has also been very, very helpful. But I really like your question, very sensitive, very thought-provoking question, that how does a woman actually go when there's sexual abuse in the house, when there's domestic violence in the house? How does she take that step to go to the outside world and approach an agency? So I agree. So you have to find an NGO support or a counseling center support or a special cell where professional social workers are there. That kind of support to take the journey forward. Actually, Vibhuti and me have walked a long way together, so we know each other very well, and that's why I wanted to listen to Vibhuti's presentation, though I was not supposed to. I said, let me see.
But today's papers, Flavia has a very inspiring story. All those girls who were trafficked and repeatedly raped in Muzaffarnagar shelter home, which TIS has provided they did the study of the shelter homes in Bihar, no? And the state government, Maharashtra state government, they brought them, even Karnataka government also, they were taken out of Bihar and they were given special scholarship. And many of all 34 girls, now they are working women. They are working in the hospitality industry. In 3 years' time, they were not only given counseling and support, and they also were trained, which is very, very inspiring. And they say that we have left our past as a hazard, we don't think about it. Now we are thinking about future. Today, the story has appeared in Indian Express. So it is possible. Change is possible. It's not the way Bollywood shows every survivor of rape or sexual assault has to commit suicide. No, we don't say that. It is possible. In fact, tell about the Operation Help, no, which we work with the Bombay police, where the cases of like dying declaration, the work of dying declaration, when women dies of burns, like a Sion hospital had invited us because the police was threatening the dying woman, taking bribe from the accused and hushing up the case. So that was the accusation we had. And the commissioner of Bombay, commissioner of police asked us to, they said, in that case, you be the witness. So 10 women's organization in Bombay, we were remaining when the dying declaration was given. Flavia also organized a workshop in collaboration with College of Social Work that how the dying declaration should be written. No, so even the modalities of dying declaration, and the trial court judge also, she chaired the session and all. And then we were asked to, and 72 hours, one woman's group would remain in the burns ward for 72 hours. And then the protocols were and SOPs were created for the taking testimony of a woman in this thing. Second, a very important thing was Operation Help that we did with the Commissioner of Police when the Kamatipura was disbanded. There are many, many theories that it is a prime land and builders lobby wanted that land, but the whole quote unquote red light area when it was disbanded, and 5,000 women, there were 60% sex workers were underage. They were 18, below 18, because of this myth that if you have a sex with virgin girl, your STD, sexually transmitted disease, get cured. So virgin girls are were more in demand. And when the Bombay police raided this, and all these women were quote unquote rescued and presented to the High Court, we women's groups, we collaborated with the 13 shelter homes, and they stayed in that. 50% of them ran away. They were not used to such a restricted life in the shelter home. Those shelter homes were very, very democratic. We were there always. Then the aptitude test, teach one, each one program, negotiation with the principals of 40 colleges who were ready to take them for further education if they cleared their exam. Like it was an open school through which they were given intensive teaching so that they could directly go to junior college. And so a lot of experimentation was happened with the civil society organizations, women's groups, Indian Army, Indian Police, and educational institution. And so many of them they have left their painful past behind. None of them wanted to go. These are the girls who did not want to go to their family members and screamed in the court saying that we will not go back. Otherwise, again, we will be sold. And that was the time IS officer, Home Minister, Special Secretary of Home Department, she advised the Chief Minister that if these girls don't want to go back to their home, and in the court, they would say, he's not my uncle, he's a pimp. He's not my father, he is a procurer. And they said that we can't send them back. And then the whole multi-stakeholders, they came together. Nodal agency was College of Social Work. All this thing was documented under participatory action research method by the research unit of College of Social Work. And these girls have now a very, very different life. They are like your and my daughter working. And even the placement cell was also there once they got their degree and they were employed. So I think when there is a will, there is a way. And though budget, the Social Defense Department had to put in a lot of financial resources for their developmental needs. Yeah. But this is
I just want to say here, Vibhuti mentioned this burn wards, which women's groups were monitoring, etc. I can't tell you what a traumatic experience it is. Yeah. It is just horrific. Just to say, yeah, we were there and we were watching our dying declaration, recording, etc. sounds so simple. But it is a extremely, extremely traumatic experience to see that woman fully burnt on the verge of her death, giving the statement, recording the statement, and see the state she's in. It is just too much. So after 6 months, we said we can't do it, and then it had to come to an end.
Correct. Yeah, it was very, very painful. Yes. But the SOPs came out, Flavia, as a result of which now standard operative procedures are there, because it is based on a participatory action research and the evidence-based recommendations that emerged out of those 6 months. And now with these one-stop crisis centers are there. So I think in that also, that experience has percolated.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. If there are, ma'am, there is another question in the chat box. Miss Riya Kumari, ma'am, you may unmute yourself.
Bharti Agarwal also has question. She's just a request. How can she work together? Yeah.
Okay, I can read out the question.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, the question is, harassments and molestations faced by women at early ages impact their mental health in the long run, and growing up, the consequences impact their overall personality, and it's hard to regain their confidence in public places or workplaces. How should we help these girls restore their confidence in the long run?
Should I answer, or Flavia, you will answer?
You can answer, I can add.
What do you do in Manodhairya? See, first of all, I think it is a question of closure. If there is no closure, what you, Riya, says is correct. But if there is a closure and you see it as Flavia, as I always quote Flavia, when she says they treat it as a hazard. Okay, so many hazards and accidents take place in the life. The same way sexual harassment or any kind of this violation of your bodily integrity, treat it as a hazard. Don't bring in purity, pollution, all those things, no? And then it would be easy to resolve. And then, first of all, no, self-blame should not be there. You are not responsible for it. You haven't done anything. It is the accused. So the whole burden should be on the accused. So I think that helps us a lot. And in the counseling, if we do that kind of counseling, because I have seen it with these girls, so because I was also a volunteer for the Teach One Each One program for all these women who were forced into sex work. And I just live opposite the St. Catherine's home. So many housewives in the colony were roped in by the sisters to do hand holding of these girls. No? Even they did peer counseling where the middle class children, they were also interacting with these girls so that they start dreaming about education, about new life and all that. So and now these girls, I'm sure they may be having some bad dreams, but they are active and efficient in wherever they are, whether they are in NGO sector or whether they are working in the industry or whatever. Some of them are into beauty industry.
Actually, Majlis has a project called Rahat, where we give support to victims of sexual violence, particularly children who go through sexual violence from their own family members as well as neighbors or anybody. Now here, the walking that journey with them is very important. Supporting them is very important. Many of them are so young, 12, 13, 14, and the sexual abuse comes out only when they're pregnant and they're in the hospital for something else. And then they realize that, there is a violator, this girl has been violated, etc. And she doesn't even understand the consequences of that act of sexual intercourse and why she became pregnant. So these are the situations, and then the case is filed, and then she has to go stand trial, cross-examination, etc. It's a very harrowing experience. But if you give them support, they come out of it. It's not that forever they're marred and now they cannot lead a normal life. They go back to education, they pass out, they train for different skill training, and they get a job. And our pleasure is to see them reinstated in the society after going through this case. So it's not that they'll stay with this trauma all the time. If she has enough support and good a network of and different institutions helping her in different ways, and legal intervention is not the focus. Her rehabilitation is the focus. Whatever happens in the court, let it happen. You give evidence, but afterwards your life has to be led, and then you need to stand on your own feet. So this is the message we give. Our motto is turning victims into survivors. She doesn't remain a victim, but she becomes a survivor walking this journey. So that's an important message that we give. And whatever you said, this trauma, etc. But if she gets enough support, she can come out of the trauma.
And also community life, no, Flavia, that get together, meeting, coming together.
Peer support, all that is very important.
Yeah.
Can I leave now? Is it finished?
Thank you, Flavia. It was such a inspiring session. And your spirit.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'll leave.
Yeah.
Any questions are there? No.
Now I think all like this. Now yes. Thank you. Long time you said. 2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours. Yeah.
No, your session was very good.
No, yours was. Yeah. It made me so nostalgic.
Participants may ask questions if there are any.
It's Dr. Shalu Nigam.
Seeing none, I would like to invite Ms. Vaishali and Ms. Rahmat to introduce the program structure.
Yeah.
A very good evening to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank our esteemed distinguished experts for today's session, for sharing their knowledge and experience, which has added significant depth to the discussion and provided our audience with a richer understanding of the complexities surrounding gender-based violence. As part of the LPPYF Law and Public Policy Youth Fellowship, we have a creative project for our participants, where the fellows are expected to undertake a creative project during the course. And the project has to be submitted to IMPRI in 2 forms. One as a presentation during the course.
Increase the font size. Please increase the font size. Fine.
Right. In 2 forms, which will be one as a presentation during the course on December 16th and 23rd, 2023, where fellows will be expected to present their creative project in either forms of visual, oral, or narrative mediums. These may include, but are not limited to, songs, performance poetry, paintings, photo essays, and short films. Further, on suggestions from the expert, the fellows can convert their presentation topic in a research article for the anthropology publication as an opportunity to become an individual chapter contributing author in a special edition of IMPRI books, LPPYF, an anthology of essays on promoting human rights and ending gender-based violence. The program offers participants the unique opportunity to delve into diverse topics, and the deadline for the submission of the chapter is January 2nd, 2023. However, participants are requested to submit the abstract for the essays, which will be December 2nd, 2023. And also, the fellowship expects the participants to undertake only one topic for the project and use their creativity for presentation and later develop the same in a research essay. Further, participants are also requested, when they will present when they will be presenting their presentation, keep it concise to 3 to 4 slides, and also keep it concise to 3 to 4 minutes, having their slides. Also, participants can choose topics from a varied area of international, national, local human rights, laws and policies, foreign policies such as human rights, constitutional laws, foreign policies, marginalized communities' rights, gender justice, environment rights, disability rights, or any other such policy and law-related issue. Topics with a focus on policy and schemes are encouraged. Some suggested thematic areas may include, but are not limited to, gender equality and empowerment, rights of sexual minorities, environmental justice and sustainability, refugee rights and humanitarian interventions, indigenous rights and cultural preservation, access to education and healthcare as fundamental rights, protecting the rights of disabled people. Further, I would like to add that participants will be they will be getting the course outline and reading resources over the email, which will have detailed guidelines of the essay submission and also how to further details of the fellowship. Further, I would request Rehma to present the program time structure.
Well, Shaliji, you haven't given the word limit for essay and research article and also creative. Word limit?
Ma'am, word limit will be added in the same guideline itself.
No, but 33,000 to 4,000. So yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
It will be added in the, everything will be provided in this course outline to the participants. It will be sent over to the email.
Yeah.
I would request Rehma to present the program time structure.
Yes. So the program time structure for LPPYF is as follows. So day 1, which was today, November 25th, 2023, from 6 to 6:15 p.m., we had introduction and chair's opening remarks on promoting human rights and ending gender-based violence by Professor Vibhuti Patel. From 6:15 to 7 p.m., we had the inaugural session, The Impact of Law Reform on Gender Rights by Advocate Dr. Flavia Agnes. From 7 to 7:40, we had Women's Movement in India, Historical Evolution and Achievements by Professor Vibhuti Patel. From 7:40 to 8, we have the participants' intro and program discussion with Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam. Day 2, which is on 2nd December 2023, from 6 to 6:45 p.m., we have Promoting Human Rights in India, Impact and Way Forward with Advocate Dr. Albertina Almeida. From 6:45 to 7:30 p.m., we have Legal Hands on Session 1, Human Rights with Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam. From 7:30 to 8 p.m. is Essays and Research Article Writing with Professor Seena Pearl. Day 3, 9th December 2023, from 6 to 6:45 is Ending Gender-Based Violence in India, Issues and Challenges with Dr. Kirti Bolinini. With from 6:45 to 7:30 p.m. is Legal Hands on Session 2, Gender-Based Violence with Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam. 7:30 to 8 p.m. is Essay Topic Selection and Discussion. Day 4, 10th December 2023, from 6 to 6:40 p.m. is the special lecture on International Human Rights Day with Dr. Vahida Nenar. From 6:40 to 7:20 is Human Rights and LGBTQIA+ community in India with Dr. Aksa Sheikh. 7:20 to 8 p.m. is Legal Hands-on Session 3, Human Rights with Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam. Day 5, 16th December 2023, from 6 to 6:30 p.m. is Addressing Gender-Based Violence in the Way Forward with Ms. Elsa Marie de Silva. 6:30 to 7 is Legal Hands-on Session 4, again, Gender-Based Violence with Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam. 7 to 8 are the fellow presentations and discussion. Day 6, 23rd December 2023, 6 to 7 p.m. is a valedictory session with Professor Govind Kilkar. 7 to 7:45 are program presentations, interactive session, discussion and feedback. And then 7:45 to 8 is the chair's closing remarks and vote of thanks with Professor Vibhuti Patel.
Thank you. Next, we have Shalu, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam ma'am to discuss about the program and participants' introduction. Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam is a visiting senior fellow at IMPRI. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you. I think this is the last session of the day. So what I'll do, I'll just try to share, why we started this program, why we thought of this entire thing. So maybe I'll just start with that. And then we can have participants' introduction. So the 16 days of active, now for some of you, it may be, a kind of repetition. You may have already read about this, but, just to start with and to give this introduction, we have to be at the same page. So the 16 days of activism, at the international level suddenly kicks off on 25th of November, and with the International Day of Elimination of Violence Against Women, and runs until 10th December, Human Rights Day. And this campaign was started by activists at the inauguration of Women's Global Leadership Institute in 1991 to basically, organize strategies around the world to call for Prevention and Elimination of Violence Against Women. And basically in support of this civil society initiative, now this campaign is known as Unite. And basically the goal is that by 2030, we have to end violence against women. And Unite calls for the global action to increase awareness and galvanize the advocacy efforts. And in 2023, the theme is to invest to prevent violence against women and girls. So basically focusing on financing different prevention strategies to stop violence. Now, basically, they started, they call it, colored the world orange. Now, why they have chosen this orange color? Because it is a bright and optimistic color, and it represents a future free from violence against women and girls. And they also call 25th day of every month to mobilize people around the world to support this Orange Day initiative. And it calls on people everywhere to wear the orange color and take action to end violence against women and girls. So you can find all this information that is available on the internet. Now, why we are focusing on gender equality and ending violence against women? Because Sustainable Development Goal number 5 is talking about that. And India is signatory to various international human rights instruments, including Universal Declaration of Human Rights, CEDAW, Beijing Platform. And the more you want to know about how India is faring in Sustainable Development Goal, you can go through the site, the website of Niti Aayog, and also the IndiaUN.org website. But the situation right now is that as per the report in 2023, India ranked at 112th position, Bangladesh is at 101, Pakistan at 128, and Afghanistan is at 158th position in South Asia. So that means, we have to do so much of work to really, to achieve our targets. So I'll basically, globally, we know that 1 in 3 women experience gender-based violence, and more than 5 women or girls are killed every hour by someone in their own family. Less than 40% of women who experience violence seek help of any sort. Since we are talking about help, and women are not seeking help even if they are facing a lot of violence. So it's not only in India, but even this is worldwide issue that 40% of women have been those who are experiencing violence are seeking help, and because of various reasons we have discussed. So basically the Unite says that every year around 245 million women and girls they are experiencing violence, and more than 4 in 5 they have this legal protection against, they are without this legal protection against violence. So, in many countries, the legal protection is also not available, or sometimes it is available, but then women can't go, or because they are, because of the cost of litigation or because of various other factors, the access to justice is limited. Sexual assault, we all know that around 50% of sexual assaults are being committed against the girls under 16 years of age. So, this is the data by the United Nations. And we know that 614, this economic crisis, conflict and climate change, and this all is affecting and making women more vulnerable. So we have 614 million women and girls who are living in conflicted affected areas, and intimate partner violence has increased 2.54 times higher. And basically, after in the COVID, during this time, we have seen that how violence has increased. Basically, domestic violence cases were on rise during this period. Even the workspace and online space, the violence in digital spaces is also increasing. And there are various studies which are being conducted, which says that 38% of women have personal experience of online violence, and 85% of women who spent online time, they have witnessed digital violence. Even in technology sector, 44% of women they have experienced some form of harassment, and 41% of women experience sexual harassment. So technology has facilitated, so much of intervention that, that now we are talking on, we are having this kind of spaces where we can talk about violence, but also during that course, the online violence is increasing, and more and more number of women are witnessing, digital violence. And so the impact of violence is, we all know that how it affects physical and mental health, health and well-being of women. There are social and economic consequences, and how the violence negatively affects women. It causes economic insecurity, it disrupts livelihoods, and at the global level, it is estimated that the cost of violence is around, amounts to US $1.5 trillion. But the good thing is that it can be prevented, and what the UN campaign is saying is that we need to invest in terms of efforts to end violence. And the study says that because of increased investment, conviction rate could be doubled. Across 12 countries, they have conducted these studies, and they found that we have to increase this and investment, plus we have to address the economic hardships, and we have to transform social norms. So this entire we have to take so many steps to enable safer environment for women. So the link between poverty, financial stresses, and hardship we have already discussed during the session, so I'll just skip the slide. In terms of the aid which is coming, which is being given, on gender-focused project, only 1% is directed to women's organization, and funding has not improved despite increased momentum and clear evidence of need. Only 1/4 of the countries have system to track the budget allocation for gender equality overall, and data on national budgets to address violence against women and girls are hardly available. So according to the research, 78% of countries have budgetary commitments to implement legislation, but again, how much is reaching at the ground level, that we need to see. So we can take interventions at various levels, at individual levels. Of course, we can talk about creative efforts to promote the message of zero tolerance to violence. So at the state level, we have to invest in prevention. We have to make all efforts to prevent violence against women. So solution is comprehensive and robust response in terms of investment, in terms of strengthening the law, improving services for survivors, and sound evidence and data. So prevention is the key, and we have seen that we have to promote positive social norms, as we have been discussing throughout this session, and it has to be in a holistic way. We need to have strong and autonomous feminist movements, as the previous sessions have shown, that how women's movement is playing a major role in prevention and in ending violence against women. So we have challenges. The investment is very less. 78% of the countries have budgetary committees, but then the money is not being invested properly on the programs to end violence against women. So but there are some promising practices. For example, in Bolivia, now they have allocated 15% of the budget for these kind of programs. In Fiji, they have said that initial $1 million will be allocated to have these programs on violence against women, and to end all kinds of violence, and to strengthen the women empowerment schemes. So the Unite campaign talks about leaving no one behind, and you have to apply a human right-based approach. It has to be survivor-centered, and everyone in society has to play an important role. So now we can ask that, okay, what can I do? So, okay, be an ally in preventing violence against women and girls. At the state level, we can have various programs. Private sectors, universities, all can play a important role. I was when I was going through this, whole about the 16 days gender-based violence, I came across a website in Europe, and what they said is about, they have divided their programs, the day, like according to day. So day one, they talks about victim blaming myths. On day two, you speak up when someone jokes about rape. Day three is not to belittle or minimize anyone's experience of abuse. Day 4 and 5, not to speak about, not only to speak about violence against women, but also to challenge sexism and the stereotypes which we see. Day 6 is you use your social media platform to raise awareness about violence against women. Day 7 and 8, talk about, that how boys and girls should respect one another and equip children to be resilient if faced with abuse or bullying. Day 9 is to encourage women and boys in your life to reject the stereotypes. And day 10 is about being more vocal about violence against women and sign the pledge not to commit, condone, or stay silent about gender-based violence. Day 11 is about how organizations can implement domestic abuse workplace policy. Day 12 is if you are a witness to violence against women, don't ignore it. What steps you can take, you have to think about it. Day 13 is about sharing details of local domestic and sexual violence helplines and help others. Day 14 and 15, the volunteers, you can volunteer or you can donate to charity or you can associate yourself with women's organization. And day 16 is to express solidarity. It's not only today, and it's like every other day of the year. So basically, these are the kind of interventions which are happening at global level. So but in India, we have to really catch up this thing, and we have to formulate more strategies to intervene in the programs of how to prevent violence against women. So now coming to this program, as already Vaishali has told you about, the kind of activities we will have. So basically the purpose was, to have a comprehensive knowledge on gender-based violence and human rights principles, and basically to, to embrace this UN theme of unite, and surely about writing the essay, Vaishali has already told you. So the sessions we will go through, that is also being said, so I'll just skip through that. The topics you can take up, the creative projects. So with this, I'll just stop here, and any questions you have, and then we can start with participants' introduction. So any questions about the program? If anybody is having, we can take that up, or otherwise we can start with introduction of the participants. Some of you have already introduced yourself, but all of us should introduce.
Participants can unmute one by one.
Hi. Hi, Vibhuti ma'am. Hi, Dr. Shalu. Hi, Shweta ma'am. My name is Sushant Jha. And I'm working for a company called SDOTJ Hospitality, which is in the field of tourism and hospitality. So women plays a greater role in hospitality industry, ma'am. There's a lot of women you'll find in the hospitality sector in the hotels. I work with a lot of hotels with hotels like Intercontinental, Hyatt, Radisson, then with Kingdom of Dreams. It's a big platform, which is one of the highest shows which happen. The length of the show is around 2.5 hours. So I work with a lot of ladies, with a lot of women, and women empowerment is really needed. Means women are the beautiful faces, and they are the most generous species of the universe. So we should respect women, and I also do it. In fact, my wife, I take care of her, and she's also a director in the firm. We both are working together. And as far as my education are concerned, I passed out from Indian Institute of Tourism and Travel Management, which is under Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. I passed out from Air India Staff College. I'm certified by IIM Bangalore, IIT Bombay, and then Stanford. I'm certified by them. And now I'm working for my firm. And we are getting a technology. We are getting a technology to cater to the B2B segment, which are the travel agents, with the hotel industry and the airlines. So we're getting a technology with the help of IIT Bombay and IIT Kharagpur. That's about me, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. So who's the next person?
Can I go ahead?
Please.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Smitana Saikia. I'm talking to you from Bangalore. I teach at Asim Premji University. And it is so wonderful to meet you all and to listen to Professor Patel and Flavia ma'am. I mean, I have actually attended some of her lectures. I was a student in TIS some years ago. So it's really wonderful. Wonderful memories are coming back of hearing these wonderful women. This is really an important conversation. I'm so glad we're participating in this. I am actually actively involved in my own university's gender-related work and sensitization. I'm part of our POSH committee, and I work regularly with issues on sexual harassment at workplace. But I'm looking forward to kind of learning more from the legal and the human rights perspective about gender and gender-based violence. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Look forward to interact with you all in the rest of the month. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. We have Sushant Jha.
He introduced himself, no?
Yeah, Sushant.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
very interesting
Sorry.
views as well as interesting background you had. It's nice to have such a diverse participants. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next we have Vivek Javale. Mr. Vivek Javale. You may unmute yourselves. I think there might be some issues. We can go to Mr. Arjun Singh. You may unmute yourself as well.
Vibhuti Chaudhary.
Vivek Javale is trying to speak, but we are not able to hear.
Okay. Mr. Arjun Singh.
Or
I think
Vibhuti Chaudhary.
I think there is a connection problem.
Yeah. Ms. Vibhuti Chaudhary. Are you there? Hello.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, I'm Vibhuti Chaudhary. Ma'am, I'm currently working in Indian Oil Corporation as a civil engineer. I have recently joined here, but I'm not remotely related or have formally been educated in these topics. So this is all new, but this is something which have been discussed in our home, human rights and gender-based violence. And parents used to have my sister is Sparsh Chaudhary who asked a question in this earlier. So she encouraged me and she told me about this fellowship, and I think I needed to learn more about it, so I joined it. So this is all about me.
So, and you are in Bombay office?
No, I'm in Vadodara. So currently working in a refinery. So
yeah, that's my native place. I grew up. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Okay. In the interest of time, ma'am, Vibhuti Patel, ma'am, I request you to kindly share your closing remarks.
Yeah. I think today, I think we all three of us complemented each other, because I think the overview of the women's rights movement, then the individual, how to approach the gender-based violence in the court of law, in the streets, in the community, and also changing the efforts which are made, and strategies and tactics that which NGOs and women's rights organizations have used, that is brought up. And also Shalu ma'am gave us a global perspective for what efforts with the United Nations has taken, International Women's Movement has taken, alternative global networks that have been created. And I think the statement and call to action for increased investment in prevention by 9 UN entities on the occasion of the official commemoration of the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women, which was made on 3 days back, that was 22nd November 2023 by the UN headquarters. I think that has also galvanized all the official agencies into action. Experiences of women's movement over the last 50 years have shown that violence against women and girls is preventable, and it has also expanded the scope. It is not now remaining only to the women and girls, but also to the sexual minorities and the whole gender spectrum. They are also like part of this struggle. Yet financial commitments by the nation states and the private sector to prevent remain scant. We have experience of Nirbhaya Fund, like after 2013, we have 1,000 crore allocated for fighting gender-based violence, but none of the, most of the state governments have nearly 100% non-utilization of that fund, except for Meghalaya and 3-4 other Nagaland and northeastern countries, which have used 30-40% of the budget. Rest of them have not used. So it is not only a question of scarcity of resources, but also the mindset of the bureaucrats, mindset of the governance structures, mindset of the administrators, who are not even sending proposals because it's a centrally sponsored scheme. So I think except for CCTV camera and the surveillance technology that for which the money has been used, nothing has happened at a ground level. So I think that is a very important thing that we need to note. And I'm so happy that there are some participants in this course who are also applying for civil service this thing, and I think they are going to be a very different kind of administrators who will be gender responsive. In fact, Flavia's experience herself shows that how she became from a victim, she became a survivor, and she realized that the kind of humiliation she faced by dealing with the case of domestic violence, that she was determined to become a lawyer. And we have seen that increasing number of women who are survivors of the violence, they become professionally competent. Those whom I met 20 years back, 25 years back, 30 years back, when I see them and when I get some invitation, I said, ma'am, now I am a officer in the corporate officer, I am a lawyer, or some of them have joined the police force, some of them they have joined institution as a counselor, they have done professional courses which empower them, and they said what all the women's movement did for us in 15-20 years back, we are doing for women who are in our lives, who are in our neighborhood. So I think Jyot se Jyot jaga ke chalo, that means the question of solidarity, that becomes very important. Once we get empowered, we empower others. Now, the other thing is that that's why what we need is a new kind of gusto and the spirit. I think the kind of spirit which was shown after the Nirbhaya tragedy, where we saw that spontaneous protests were happening throughout the country, not for a day or not for a week, but for months together, and everywhere, and it was backed by social media. And we saw so many younger generation of boys and girls in their 18-year, 20-year, 21-year, looking out for feminists who were earlier, like people like me and Flavia were told that we have now become dinosaurs. Feminists have become, it's a passe. This is a post-feminist world, and they all united with us. They were talking only about castration, chemical castration and capital punishment as a solution to gender-based of sexual violence. And that's not the solution. If that is the case, like all the studies show, that how 1 in 3 women in the world have experienced sexual violence, we just can't eliminate the people. We have to change the world. I think so. Transformative agenda is very important. That's why I think I would like to end today's session with a powerful elan with the 1 Billion Rising campaign has given. The 1 Billion Rising campaign came on this day 10 years back in 2013. And within 10 years, what we have seen that women are rising. They are creating new culture, a culture where we collectively share in the commitment to end violence towards women, gender non-conforming and gender expansive people, and violence towards the earth, dismantle patriarchy, cultivate care, community, trust, and compassion, uphold cooperation and rather than competition, refuse outright inequality of wealth, place people over profit, active listening, know your true history, make apologies and reparation, honor the artists, visionaries, seekers, storytellers, shamans, poets, and healers, celebrate diversity, embrace collective energy, practice solidarity, embody the power of art and dance. 2023 will be the year of inspiration and aspiration, a year of storytelling, building communities, strengthening solidarity, sharing dreams, planting trees, creating art, honoring women and earth and dancing. Kamala Basin is not with her, but this was her vision. And I think she would have even recited it with her very, very lyrical style. It is the year we will continue to envision and create new ways of being, seeing, living, loving, and connecting, of rising consciousness and deepening understanding, so that our freedom, our future is rooted in truth, love, community, earth, and body. Celebrate 10 years of rising. Join us in 2023. That's what the 1 Billion Rising campaign's elan has been for today. Thank you very much for extremely inspiring and lively session. You, dear participants, and our resource persons, Advocate Flavia, Agnes, and Advocate Shalu Nigam have made. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to inform fellow participants that the introductions that we have missed today will be taken up in the next session. So with the chair's permission today, we can go ahead with the vote of thanks. Thank you, ma'am. As we come to the end of day 1 of Law and Public Policy Youth Fellowship 2.0 Cohort, an online national winter school program, a 1-month immersive online law and public policy awareness certificate training course and internship program, I, Shweta Shankar, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI, New Delhi. We are grateful to our experts for the day 1 session, Advocate Dr. Flavia Agnes, Professor Vibhuti Patel, and Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, for taking out their valuable time and giving us an opportunity to learn from this online certificate program. We thank our chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel, and lead advisor, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, for convening the session. We thank all of our participants who have raised pertinent questions and have actively participated in today's deliberation. We look forward to welcoming you this Saturday on December 2nd at 6 p.m. for our day 2 of the certification course by distinguished experts, Advocate Dr. Albertina Almeida, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, and Professor Sina Paul. We are grateful if you're watching us later on YouTube or listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join in future to our IMPRI #WebPolicyTalk and #WebPolicyLearning. Wishing you a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.